In this video, we're going to talk about the number one question to ask when your clients get irritated. I mean, you can use it on yourself too, because we all get irritated, right? Whether it's frustration or anger or even just full-on rage. But as a coach, if you don't know how to help your clients move through the irritation rather than just try to sweep it under the rug, then you're really doing them a disservice. And irritation can be an invitation to a breakthrough. So check out this entire conversation because there are several sub-questions that you want to ask after this main one. I've been doing this coaching work for a long, long time, and irritation is one of the through lines that we always see in deep coaching. So this skill is going to be massive in your ability to be a better coach. Let's talk about irritation. Irritation is the word of the day. And we're going to dive into questions you can ask when you are irritated. So before we get into the conversation, we do a lot of these exploratory conversations on this channel and really dive into deep work coaching and the internal challenges that we have as coaches building our businesses, as well as the things that we can apply to ourselves. So if this is something that you're interested in, you're not already a subscriber to the channel, go ahead and subscribe, hit that little button or the little bell so that you get notified when we produce our videos. And we've been pumping out 2 to 3 videos a week, and we're getting more. And we just crossed 20,000 subscribers. That was really cool to see that. That was a cool milestone. So thank you to all of you that are already subscribers and support the channel. We really appreciate it. So we're going to talk about the number one question to ask when we feel irritated or when our clients feel irritated. And then there are some follow-up questions with it, right? Because it's not just the one question, then all of a sudden the clouds open up and then the solution comes down and all of a sudden we're healed. For other people, I mean, that's how it works with me, but for other people, right? So the number one question gets us into the conversation, and then we'll talk about how we explore with some of these other questions. So the first thing I think that's really important is to understand about irritation. I think a lot of people maybe intellectually understand. I think a lot of people would say they get this, but we don't act like it a lot of times. It's that irritation is required for a breakthrough, especially for a breakthrough. Right? Yeah. I think we spend a lot of our time wanting to not be irritated. And I mean, that makes sense, of course. Like, we don't enjoy irritation. But in order for somebody's life to change, there has to be irritation. And I think a lot of times what I've learned over the 15 plus years is that people won't change until there's irritation, until there's some reason to change. And so what that looks like for most of us is we're heading down a path and we recognize that this is not the path that we want to be on. And we're irritated by the fact that this is the path that we don't want to be on. Or we try to do something, we can't do it. We find ourselves incompetent to build a business or to overcome some obstacle or to get into another relationship or get over our past one or deal with the grief or whatever it is that we're wanting to do, and we can't do it. And then we get irritated that we can't do it, right? So the human generally doesn't just decide when times are happy that they want help, right? When times are happy that, you know, I want to up level my life, because that is going to require for pretty much all of us some form of irritation. So the reason this is fundamental and important in this discussion to have is that we need to hold on to irritation as an invitation. We need to hold on to it as something that is good. Now, it might not be enjoyable, and there's a difference between something that's valuable and something that's enjoyable. So it might not be enjoyable. The sensation of irritation is not really enjoyable. I don't know anybody who has learned. I don't know if it's something that we would ever try to learn, but I don't know anybody that enjoys the sensation of irritation or pain. But I just know people who've learned that it's valuable. And I know that's a big part of my journey and your journey, that the biggest lessons, if I look back on my life, the biggest lessons that I've learned came from irritation and were born inside of irritation. So it wasn't just like a catalyst, something that irritated us and then it was a catalyst. The lesson itself came even as we're learning the lesson, and sometimes as we're building the new habits or the new awareness or whatever, that's irritating too. I mean, the whole process is irritating. I watched this movie the other day. It was like the most intense birthing scene I'd ever seen. And it was, I want to say it was like 20 solid minutes of just this woman going through birth. And it just showed all the pain on her face and, all the tension, and just, it was so intense. It didn't show anything crazy, like, anything gross or any of that, but it was just the intensity of that moment. Right. And my wife and I have 2 kids. So even though she didn't go through natural births, she was in the birthing process, right? She ended up having 2 C-sections, but she was in that birthing process, going through the pain and contractions and dilation and all that kind of stuff. And it was just so intense. And I jokingly just like looked at her and goes like, why would anybody do this? I mean, I said, if women knew this is what it was, like, would anybody do it? And she's like, absolutely not. But and of course, this isn't anything new. I mean, birth has never really been anything that too many people think is just this wonderful, beautiful experience. But it's valuable, obviously, because what comes after it is a child. And so that's what a lot of women can breathe through or get themselves through, thinking about, it's worth it, it's worth it. And the reason, I guess, that just came to me is because when we are creating a new level of our life, whether it's a new level of experiences or a new level of skill set or a new level of circumstances, it is like a birth process. Yeah. And so not only is the catalyst irritating sometimes, but the birthing is irritating sometimes. And then it can be irritating even after we step up to that next level, because then we realize we got a lot of stuff to shift, right? Or even just the new sunlight or the new exposure or the new wealth or the new health, the new body, the new things we see in the mirror can also be somewhat irritating. So I think we need to learn to enjoy the process that irritation, actually not the process so much as the outcome. We need to learn to value the outcome of irritation, what the irritation is inviting us into. And the reason I believe this is so critical to understand is that a lot of people just think if you just affirm your way through the irritation, or you just say, yeah, I got to get comfortable being uncomfortable, that it'll work. And my experience is just knowing that you should feel a certain way doesn't change the way that you actually feel. And just knowing that you should enjoy the irritation or just get used to being uncomfortable actually increases the irritation usually. So if there isn't an understanding of the whole process of change and the whole process of transformation, then it's just a lot harder to get there. We can't just tell ourselves without understanding a lot and really like embracing what's truly going on so that we can see what the outcome is. So I think that foundational awareness is really critical. And then these questions that we'll get into can be a lot more powerful. But if you don't have the understanding, if you don't have the intellectual understanding, either for yourself or as a coach for your clients, then it can be hard to either ask these questions, answer the questions, or advocate inside the asking and the answering of the questions for somebody else. Meaning, if you don't know what the value is on the other side of the irritation, it's going to be really difficult for you to advocate somebody else to move through that irritation, especially when they don't want any part of it. Have you ever been irritated? Is this mostly just like theoretical for you?
Theoretical.
Yeah. I'll tell you about
it. So much irritation, which is exciting. I'm so happy that you really brought up everything that you just shared. And the word that you use that I love is embrace. I think we're just programmed so much, especially women. We are programmed to not feel irritated, not feel angry, not feel upset. That it's not that we're programmed not to feel it. We're taught that it's not okay, right? We're taught that it's not okay to be in that space. But the only way that I have learned to get to the baby, right, to get to that rebirth on the other side, is by fully like feeling it and really like surrendering into the irritation. And I believe the depths in which we allow ourselves to really have that experience is, to the same degree, the depths of the joy, right, that we're going to feel from our breakthrough or from the thing that is on the other side. And really understanding, to what you said, that it is not only okay, but it's required, right? There is no, I mean, it's one of the main ingredients inside of a breakthrough is that irritation, because there has to be the conflict. If there's no conflict, like you said, we're not going to be like, things are amazing and working out so well, let's change it. Right? There has to be that kind of friction of something needing to change. So I love it. Now I embrace it. I don't always like it. And I'm certainly, I love to
Do you
blame.
ever like it?
There's moments that I do, because I just now enjoy like being in that space. What I don't love is answering the questions that come, because it takes me from blaming, you or anybody else that I'm irritated with. It takes me from blaming you to shifting the lens and pointing the finger in the other direction. So that part, not always.
And I know that when you say blaming you, you're not using a universal you in that
No,
sense. I know
you,
who you're talking to
Sean
specifically.
Smith.
Yeah.
Which makes sense, because so many of my massive breakthroughs have been in our coaching conversations and in our live events. So you have to be, based on everything that we just said, connected to that irritation. And that's a really important concept, especially for coaches, for us to understand, right? We have to be okay with that if we want to be connected, right, to that breakthrough, to that transformation for the client. I love when people are irritated with me now.
I'm filming a YouTube video, so I'm gonna filter my responses.
Are you flashing through like
No,
memories?
yeah. Got to remember we're live right now. So a few words: conflict, friction. Those are the things that we don't enjoy generally. We're programmed that it's not okay to have them, whether it's society's programming or whatever. But I'm glad you highlighted the word embrace, because if we don't embrace something, then basically we're saying it doesn't exist or wishing that it didn't exist. And we cannot change anything that we haven't first embraced,
Mm.
because we can't say this thing doesn't exist and I want to get rid of it. Well, you can't get rid of the thing that doesn't exist. And for a lot of people, that embracing, whether it's taking a look at the weight that we have on our body, or the amount of money we have in the bank account, or the amount of success or failure that we have, it's generally not going to be exciting to do that, because there's a reason we want to change, right? The thing that we don't like is what we're wanting to change. So looking at it and embracing the thing that we don't like is not an enjoyable process for a lot of us, but we can't change it unless we confront the fact that it does exist. And then that gives us power to do something about it. So, this idea that irritations are invitations into a breakthrough is really important. It's an important concept for us to understand. Otherwise, then we're just trying to motivate ourselves through the conflict and through the friction, like you said. So, if we understand with ourselves and or with our clients that that irritations are invitations to a breakthrough, let's talk about some of the questions that we can ask ourselves. And notice we're saying, what are the questions you can ask, not what are the affirmations you can say or what are the declarations you can make. Unless that works for you, then do it. But I mean, I don't know anybody that works for. I don't know that I've thought about it this way, because I think when we affirm something, like if we try to use an affirmation that isn't actually true right now, the effect of that affirmation, quite often, I'd say for most of us, is essentially just a shutdown. It's like an avoidance, right? If I'm not happy right now and I use an affirmation or I just declare that I am happy, it's actually not true. I'm not embracing the unhappiness that I have. I'm just trying to overpower it with positive thinking or affirmations or whatever it is that I'm using. So for most people that I've come in contact with, that I've done coaching with, that I've talked to, there's an there's an exploration or an exploratory kind of energy that we generally need in order to go to that next level, because just the declaration or the affirmation doesn't usually provide any lessons. And I believe the irritations bring lessons with them. So if I'm an irritation, well, that's not theoretical for you. If I'm an irritation, I was about to say imagine, and I was like, who am I talking to? I need to tell Michelle more to imagine I'm an irritation. So I'm the irritation and I bring a gift. And if you shut down the irritation or you close the door, then you close the door on the gift as well. You close the door on the lesson to be learned. And even if we get to the next level, but we haven't learned the lessons that created the frustration at the current level, then I'm not sure we're going to stay at that next level.
No.
Right? If we go there, but we didn't learn the lessons that we needed to learn to get there, we probably won't stay there. And that's why, for me, I know for you, in our philosophy, the exploratory questions are more sustainable long term. And I think one of the reasons that maybe a lot of people don't want to do that is because exploring the pain, exploring the irritation kind of prolongs it a little bit, or at least it feels like it, right? To the mind, I just want to find the Band-Aid. I want to find the ointment, give me the thing that will put an end to this irritation. But seeking the quick end to the irritation actually prolongs it in the future, rather than saying, this is an irritation, this is an area I don't like in my life, and I wonder why. I wonder what's going on here. That feels like we're just maybe poking into the wound or maybe pouring salt in the wound. But actually what we're doing is we're learning the lesson that needs to be learned, so that that particular wound on this particular level, or whatever the conflict or friction is, can actually be solved. But that's not going to happen with any kind of avoidance technique or numbing technique, or just pretending it's not there. So I think we've adequately foundationalized this concept. What's in the laughter?
Just adequately foundationalized. I was assessing, do I feel adequately foundationalized? Yes.
Well, do you? Okay. All right, great. So the first question, and these aren't necessarily in any kind of order, and you don't have to use all of these questions, but the first one is, how is this triggering me? And again, it's like poking at it and trying to understand what's actually happening isn't always comfortable, but it's understanding how and what is actually happening. And so when this comes up in coaching conversations, what I'll usually ask is some version of, like, if somebody says they just got triggered right now in the moment, or they were irritated yesterday when so-and-so came over, or when this thing happened, what I'll usually ask for is, in as much detail as possible, what exactly happened? What did somebody say? What did you think? What was the trigger? what was the thing that created the irritation? What was the catalyst? And I don't know, I'd say probably less than half the time do people actually know what it is, especially right in the beginning. Like right away. We don't generally, because we don't catalog that stuff. We don't, pay attention like, oh, I just got irritated. Let me see what I was just doing and what I just ate and what I just watched and what I just thought. So it's not natural for us to catalog it like that. But most of the time, just through some more questioning, they can figure it out. They can remember. And that's always what I want to know. Okay. Right here, you weren't irritated. Here, you were irritated. What happened in between there? And now we know. And sometimes just answering that question answers the issue, or at least highlights the issue that, the lesson that needs to be learned or what have you. So how is this triggering me with as much observation as possible? Meaning no judgment, right? Like so-and-so was an a-hole and she's always doing this, or he's always lying or whatever. Those judgments don't really help. What I want to know is what was actually said just before this body got irritated. And if we remove the judgments, now we're just sort of scientifically identifying what the thing was, and then we can explore.
Yeah, I love that. I usually ask my version is what just happened? Yeah, what just happened?
Like if somebody gets irritated right there in the moment.
Yeah. I mean, it's this, we think that it goes so fast between thing happened and our feelings, right? Like, I mean, because that's how it feels, right? He said this or she said this and I felt this. And we forget that there are steps in between, right? So there's a judgment, right, that we make. And then that judgment is what creates the thoughts and the feelings that we feel. And so if we can pull that apart and like really like move through the event in slow-mo, and to your point, right, like scientifically, I mean, if the judgments have to come out, they come out, right? If you need to express all of that, that's great. But to pull it apart and really isolate what happened that second before that irritation, is critical.
Amen. All right, you want to do the second one?
Yeah. Whew. This is one of the questions I was speaking to earlier that irritate me inside of the irritation. What is this showing me about me? A statement that I subscribe to that is easier for me to hold on to when I am not in a place of irritation is that which irritates me is a mirror for me. And if I am looking at it like that, then what is this showing me about me? Maybe it's something that I wish I was doing, that I wasn't doing, or that I'm not doing. There was maybe a couple weekends ago, I was about to dive into work and I was super like resentful. I just felt myself like I wasn't talking like out loud, but I could hear the stories in my head about like, oh, that's so great for all those other people who just get to have their relaxing Sundays and do whatever it is that they want to do. And like just started to spin out while I'm, huffing and puffing and like in my seat at my office and pounding my little fists on my table and stopping to say, okay, what's up here? And recognizing that what's irritating me is that these other people are having these experiences and creating and doing in their life what they want to be doing, and I'm not. And looking in that mirror then led me to another choice or another question, which is, what am I choosing? Which then allowed me to be able to shift my energy into something else. So anytime that we can experience that irritation and be willing to sit with it and look, it's usually, in my experience, either something that they're doing that reminds me of a part of me that I don't maybe love so much, or that it's something that I wish that I was doing, or a way that I wish I was showing up in the world that I'm not. And I want to slap that mirror out of everybody who's irritating me's hand every single time. I'm not interested in looking at that.
Yeah, it's especially when it's showing us something that we don't like about ourselves or something that we wish were different. Obviously, one of the most powerful experiences for me, which I think was the first time that I learned this concept, was a seminar that I was at early, like early in my journey, 2005 or something like that. And there was a woman in one of the front rows this one particular day. I think she was in the front row the first 2 days. And I was so irritated by this woman. She would answer pretty much every question that the facilitator would ask. And she got most of them wrong. And then she would just cackle. She had this like loud laugh that just grated on my nerves. And I was so annoyed by her. And then I think it was on the second night. It was either the second or third night. Actually, before that, we had a bunch of partner exercises to do in this event. And there was one exercise that, we split the room and, or the facilitator said, find a partner. And she turned around and looked at me, and I was looking at her, and we locked eyes. And as soon as we locked eyes, because I was already irritated by her at the time. And I just knew that you only have like a half a second, if you lock eyes with somebody, you're committed after just a very short period of time. So I just felt all of this pressure build up, and then I had to break eye contact, and I just like pretended I needed to tie my shoe, and I reached down and tied my shoe and turned around and got somebody else because I didn't want anything to do with her. So then the evening of the second night, I'm out to dinner with several other people from the event, and we all start talking about this lady because they were irritated by her as well. And we all pretty much were irritated by the same stuff, her speaking out of turn, not waiting for the teacher to call her and not raising her hand and getting wrong and laughing and all this stuff. And then I just had this realization that this doesn't feel good. This me participating in this gossip about this other woman and like piling on her when she wasn't there. And it just felt like middle school, gossip session. And I went to bed that night, or went back to the hotel, and just didn't like the way it felt. And either that night or later that morning, somewhere during the middle of the night or something, I was thinking about the situation, that I asked myself, why am I letting this woman take away my experience that I paid like $5,000 for? And that got me thinking about the issue, the situation, because I didn't like the fact that I paid a lot of money for this and I'm not enjoying it. But I knew that I was allowing it to happen with this one particular lady. And I don't know where this came from, where this thought came from, but the thought just came, what is it that she's showing you about you that you don't like about yourself? And immediately I had answers. Immediately I recognized that she's participating, she's answering the questions and really engaging. She doesn't care if she's wrong, and she's having fun. And those three answers just came immediate for me. And they all sucked because, as you just said, I wasn't doing any of those things. I wasn't engaging and participating, not just in this seminar, but in life the way I wanted to. And I was really concerned about being wrong and other people judging me for being wrong, because I always have to be right. And, it was just one of my ways to protect me from being rejected or being abandoned. And then, was I having fun in life largely because of those two answers? No, I wasn't having fun in life. So shame on her for showing me something that I want to be like, and I'm not. So it's just so much easier, which is essentially what you said too. It's so much easier for us to project onto somebody else than to take ownership, right? It's easier for her to be the bad guy It's easier for the straight A students to be the nerds. It's easy for us to put some negative label on somebody that's doing something that we wished we were doing than taking responsibility, because that means we have to own up. We have to own up to how we're showing up in life or what choices we're making or whatever. So that moment was massive for me. And here's what happened. I went to the seminar the next day, which I believe was day 3, and she didn't change. She had the same behavior. She was answering the questions without raising her hand. She was getting them wrong, and she was cackling the same way she was cackling before. And I was in the back of the room, and I saw her do this, the same old shtick. And instead of getting irritated, I actually found myself appreciating her. It was like, oh, like she's so cute, right? Now she didn't change, but my response to her changed. And it's because of the exploration of this question. And then I appreciated the new awareness that I had, and I recognized that I wouldn't have had that new awareness without her.
Yes.
So she, through irritation, allowed me to confront something and then decide I want to play full out. I want to be okay being wrong, because I know that's how I learn, and I want to have more fun in my life. And so now we call these people or these situations our sacred trigger, our sacred teachers, rather. Our sacred teachers are the ones that bring us the opportunity to learn the lessons that we really need to learn to make a big shift in our life. But again, so often we don't catch those sacred lessons because we make them wrong, them being the people, or we slap the mirror out of the hands of whatever the trigger is. And ultimately, we lose. We get to take our comfort back. We get to find a way to avoid whatever the irritation is, or at least make ourselves think we're avoiding it by numbing or sweeping it under the rug or whatever. But if we don't learn the lesson, then it's just going to come back another way. The opportunity to learn lessons are going to continue to show up until we learn them. And that's why we repeat so many patterns, right? If we struggle with losing weight, we'll go from one diet to another diet to another diet and pretty much have the same experience at some point in time, just with slightly different details. Or we'll go from one relationship to another relationship to another relationship and just keep getting into relationships with different versions of the same person or the same wound or the same frustrations and irritations. And I think that's because we don't learn the lessons, but we can't learn the lessons unless we answer that question, which again is, what is this showing me about me? First of all, what is it showing me? So in your analogy or your example, it's that you just weren't doing what you wanted to do. Well, I guess mine too. We're just talking about different details, obviously, but I wasn't living the way I wanted to live. I wasn't enjoying, I wasn't doing what I want to do. And I'd say most of the time when we get irritated, especially with other people, it will point right back to us, and some form of that answer will show up. What is this showing me about me? It's that I'm not enjoying my life. I'm not doing what it is that I want to do. And we kind of blended in the discussion the next question as well. The next question is, what is this teaching me about me? So what it was teaching me about me is that I was afraid of being wrong, and that I was more committed to being safe than to having fun. And so if I'm more committed to being safe than having fun, well then, unless that changes, I need to stop hoping that I'll be able to have fun, or demanding or expecting that I'm going to have any fun. And it was teaching me that I wasn't engaging the way that I really want to engage, because I know I'm not going to learn without engaging. So what is it teaching me about me? And specifically, what is it teaching, or what's the lesson that I need to learn to go to that next level? Right. And so in my example, I need to learn how to not care that I'm wrong, or how to not care about other people's judgment of me. And maybe it's not so much how to not care, but how to not let it stop me, how to not let it restrict me. So I might still care, that somebody's judging me. I don't know anybody that really truly doesn't care about, not being liked, but I'm not gonna, I don't want to I don't want to need it. That's the distinction.
Yeah.
So I have to learn, I have to be aware of the lesson that needs to be learned in order for me to learn that lesson. And that's what will come out of the question. What is this teaching me about me?
Yeah. I love that you put it that way, that it leads us to the area of opportunity, right? For us to grow. And for me, it was that I was pretending I was a victim to my calendar, right? Pretending that I wasn't the one that was at choice and in control. And as soon as we recognize that, then at least for me in that moment, and for you in your experience at this event, it becomes, so what am I going to do now? Right? What am I going to choose now? I have this awareness. Now what? And just remembering that we can make a new choice in any given moment. And when I take that personal just responsibility on, and again, it's way easier, like short term easier to blame other people. But then if everybody else in your life needs to change before you get to not be irritated anymore, you're going to be irritated for a really, really, really long time. And that's because it's in you, right? So if the irritation, this was a huge awareness for me recently, was that if it's in me, if the emotion is in me, the lesson, the gift, it's for me. So it actually doesn't have anything to do with you at all. And so that when I recognize that, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. So if I'm using you, Sean, as an example, you're not irritated. I'm the one who's irritated. So who has the problem here? And that's not to blame or to say that other people's behaviors, right? Sometimes people do behave in certain ways, and bringing it all back to, I'm at choice. So if I'm the one that's experiencing this, where am I pretending that I don't have any kind of choice? And what is it that I want to do to be able to get more and have more of the experience that I do actually want to have? And that, like I said, doesn't always feel good, but that was a game changer for me. Let me bring it back home to who actually has the power to do something about this.
Yeah, that's it. It's empowering.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a bitter pill to swallow, but it's empowerment. Empowerment is a bitter pill to swallow.
Mm-hmm.
That because it's taking responsibility. But if we avoid responsibility of the issue, then we're also avoiding responsibility of the solution. To your point of waiting for other people to change. And then finally, what we always want to get to with coaching is what can we do? So the last piece of this is how can I learn this lesson? And sometimes it's some sort of exercise that you might know, or if you're a coach and it's for a client, if somebody's dealing with grief, let's say, then there could be a journaling exercise that you give them. Or if somebody's really having a big problem with another person in their life, they can write a letter. We teach the total truth letter, something that just completely changed my life. I was taught by Jack Canfield many, many years ago. That could be the how, right? Just knowing what to do doesn't necessarily mean that you or the client will know how to do it. So the client might recognize, I need to get rid of the grief that I'm carrying around. Okay, but how do you do that? And I think a lot of times we know what to do, but we don't know how to do it. And that's why the study of coaching is so critical. The study of human behavior and helping people change beliefs and express grief and or any other emotions that need to be expressed. And what do we really actually need to untie in order to produce whatever it is that we want to produce in our life? And we'll put a card up here for any of you that are interested in that and want to look into the certification program that we have, Breakthrough Coaching Certification. It's the deep dive exploration of a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here, but so much more. And how can we actually produce neurological change in people? And that's where the how comes into play, especially as a coach. Because if you just produce awareness for people, but don't give them a how to change, then they're not actually going to experience any kind of a breakthrough, because awareness is not a breakthrough. Awareness might be an invitation to a breakthrough, but awareness by itself is not a breakthrough. So how can I learn the lesson? Or as a coach, how can I help my client learn this lesson? And that's where a lot of coaches really struggle, because they don't have the confidence that they have the answer to that question or any question that might come up from the client, right? If the client recognizes that they have this big irritation, or they got this limiting belief, or they have a bunch of stored rage toward their parents or something, I don't know what to do with that. And if you as a coach don't know what to do with that, then your self-protection mechanism is going to make sure as best you can to never be in that situation. And the way that you never help somebody become aware of something you can't help them with is don't get any clients. Like, that's the best way, right? That's the way to truly protect yourself from opening up a can of worms that you can't help somebody close. So understanding the whole process as much as possible of the way humans learn and the way we transform and all that is critical. So again, we'll have a card or a link down here in the description so that you can poke around and see if it's a good fit for you. So we know that these questions, especially the exploratory energy behind them and the advocacy inside of them, are just insanely valuable and transformational, and can help people learn the lessons that they need to learn so that we can sustain our growth.
Mm.
A lot of us grow beyond our foundation. Like, our motivation can cause us to do certain activities, metaphorically run through a wall and break through a wall. But if we haven't actually learned the lessons that we're deficient in, then we're just going to have to repeat that process, or we're going to have to constantly be motivated. And that's exhausting. So what I've learned, I know what you've learned, and what we believe and teach is that success should really be a process of continual foundational evolution,
Mm.
so that you can climb and stay there, climb and stay there. Not that you won't fall back a few times, not that you won't trip up. So it's not just constant increase or constant ascent, but I'm just getting this mountain climbing visual. Not that I've ever mountain climbed, but like you climb and then you kind of anchor, or you put whatever the stick is that what it's called? It's probably called just the stick. You put the pick or whatever it is, like in the mountain, and you might fall down a little bit, but that stays there, and then you climb a little bit more and then sort of reestablish that next anchor point. And that's really more of what life is like. But the idea is to continue to increase, to elevate your anchor points. And we will fall a little bit, but we're not going to fall all the way back down. If you don't learn the lessons, quite often you'll fall all the way back down, because you haven't learned the lessons. You just jumped to the next level with, motivation or something like that. Or we try to overcompensate for our incompetencies. And that's only going to last until the incompetencies are needed, right? Or the lessons are needed, and the incompetencies become a liability, and then we fall all the way back down. So if we want foundational success and evolution and sustainability, we really need to explore and learn the lessons. And in our community, triggers has become something that we celebrate each other for.
Yeah.
We hear that somebody gets triggered and we go, congratulations, right? And it takes a little bit for us to discuss, similar to what we did in this video, or do a process, or have somebody really experience the opposite side of the irritation for them to join us in the celebration. But it truly is something that we value. And I mean, you said this earlier, I think we as coaches, we don't necessarily try to produce irritation for the sake of irritation. but we'll ask questions. And if irritation does occur, we get excited about that because we know, whether they know or not, we know that the irritation is an invitation. And you said something earlier that the issue is inside of you. So if I, as the coach, know that if my client gets irritated, that means there's something going on inside the client that's irritating. And then I believe that I can help them solve whatever that problem is. Well, then why would we not celebrate and look for more irritations? Right. And I'm not saying that I don't every once in a while actually say things to try to produce an irritation, or at least your response there seemed like that seemed like to be an embodied.
I was waiting.
Response.
I was like, you better be honest. Tell the truth.
Yeah. So every once in a while, it only happens like once every, I don't know, what would you say, few years or so. You'd probably say minutes.
Not minute.
But the truth in that, yes, I absolutely do that. And sometimes, because we got to check, sometimes, especially if there's rapport and we're talking about in a client relationship, sometimes we got to check and see if the thing that used to irritate the client, still irritates them. And then if we can say something or point to something or have them do something that used to irritate them and it no longer does, well, that's huge cause for celebration. And because we generally don't value and search for irritations in our life, a lot of times we don't give ourselves the experience of recognizing our own growth. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Absolutely.
For you, Michelle. It's all for you.
That I know and believe. And I remember maybe a couple of years ago that I replied to one of your emails and I was like, bring it, then bring it. Because as soon as I really truly, not just intellectually understood it, but really got it, got that the life that I wasn't currently living is on the other side of these irritations that I didn't want to lean into, then I wanted them, right? I'm like, let me bring them to me, try, please. Because if they're something that I've said for so many years, and I really, truly believe if there is something that is in me that is blocking me from doing the work that I am called to and appointed to do on this planet, then get it out. And if the way to find out what that thing is through irritation, then bring it. Then bring it. I'm ready.
I think it's a great concept and statement to end with, that you said that the life you're currently not living is on the other side of your irritations. So if we're afraid to confront the irritation, then we'll never get to that life on the other side. As always, if any of you want any support with your own irritations or support with learning our coaching methodologies in any way, sign up for a free consultation. There's a link in the description, and we'll support you however we can. And we have memberships now. If you are interested in playing at some of the higher levels of connection with us, and we can support you inside of our YouTube memberships program, check out the different options at the join, or click the join button and check out the different options and see if any of them are a good fit for you. Now, if you like this video, check out that video where we talk about all kinds of powerful questions to use when you're coaching somebody. Then coaching becomes so much easier because the certainty that you need as a coach is easier to find in the curiosity that you have to ask good questions than it is to find